You've just rolled up to In the Mind of Reelz, where the whiskey's strong, the opinions are stronger, and there's no filter in sight. We're talking no holds barred, people. I am Reelz, Marine, biker, musician, and unapologetic patriot. I love my country and all things fast, loud, and wild. And if you came here looking for a smooth ride, well, you're in the wrong motherfucking place. Buckle up. Let's get it done. It's time to dive into the chaos that's inside my mind. So, I have to apologize to y'all. I've been kind of MIA for the last month or so. I've been crazy busy and making some life changes and doing some positive things, and it's just kind of kept me busy, man. Like, I was pretty consistent in trying to post an episode every week, every other week or so, but you know what? Life gets in the way sometimes, and you just gotta get things done. So that's kind of where I've been, but I promise I'm gonna try to get back on track and be a little bit more consistent with, posting some episodes. Now, if you've been listening for a while, then you might recognize some of the things I'm going to talk about tonight. I've shared bits and pieces here and there on previous episodes, but today I'm kind of pulling it all together for a reason. This isn't about, repeating myself. It's about building the big picture, okay? Because today's episode is something that the world seriously needs more of, and I'm talking about accountability, all right? Not pity, not blame, just real growth, no excuses, no filters. And I'm a firm believer in just, keeping it real and shooting it straight. So I'm about to share something with y'all that I haven't really spoken about in many years. As a matter of fact, very few people know this about me. But you know what? As you get older, it's one of those things that you've learned to deal with and cope with. And I'm just going to throw it out there. So when I was about 12 years old, I was molested by a grown-up that, I trusted. This person didn't just get me. He got my best friend and several other mutual friends that we knew. And there was kind of like a little group of us. We always hung out all the time. And I'm not going to get too down into the rabbit hole and tell you full-on details of what happened. I can tell you this. There was no penetration, okay? But this guy was very good at manipulation. We're 12-year-old kids. When you're a kid, you don't see the evilness in people, right? And not only that, this guy was an uncle of one of our buddies. Like, we trusted this guy. So we ended up staying at his house. Like, he had a little, gathering, and there was about 6 of us. And we went over there and hung out. And it wasn't, like, an uncommon thing for us to do. But this particular night was different because he let us drink beer. And he kind of just let us do whatever the fuck we wanted to do. And, a 12-year-old kid, we're kind of going through puberty and shit like that. He let us watch porns. Like, we'd never seen porn before. It was fucking, like, the greatest thing ever, right? So, anyways, to fast-track this a little bit, there came a point where we all just passed out, right? We just passed out. And I woke up with a throbbing fucking headache. And there was a blanket over my head. And I obviously felt somebody was sucking my little 12-year-old cock, right? So, I pull down the blanket and I see this grown man sucking my dick, right? And it was the uncle. So you can imagine kind of the thoughts going through my head at the time, right? You're like, well, what do you do? Like, I'm scared shitless. Like, my head is fucking throbbing from drinking, and I'm just like a deer in headlights. But anyways, I somehow managed to get up, and you could see he was like scared. Like, he was, oh shit, I fucking got caught. ended up getting my buddy, and we got our skateboards, and we ended up bouncing, right? Well, in leaving, my buddy was crying, my BFF at the time, he was crying, so it's like, he confided in me that the same thing happened to him, and so, like, here we are, fucking, riding our skateboards home at like 5, 6 o'clock in the morning, and, we're like, oh my God, we can't fucking tell anybody about what happened, right? But, something like that, it doesn't stay secret for very long, right? So my mom at some point knew something was up like a couple weeks later, right? And even my buddy Jason, that's his name, my BFF, his name was Jason. We didn't talk for a couple weeks after this. Like, it seriously fucked us up mentally. We didn't know how to be, but my mom kind of figured something out. Like, I wasn't the same kid. Like, I was acting out. I was, getting suspended from school, getting into fights. Like, my whole demeanor had changed, right? So, and, to fast forward a little bit more, my mom found out about it. I ended up telling her the whole story. And at the time, my mom was a fucking badass. She was a paralegal and worked for a very big shot lawyer in Long Beach. And when she found out and she connected the dots, she got all the kids, she told all the parents, got everything kind of rolling. And we ended up going to court. This guy got arrested. She knew some cops in Long Beach who said he did not, well, let's just put it this way, he wasn't treated very well in prison, and my mom made sure of that. So I'm forever grateful for her for being able to kind of take charge and doing that, right? But the damage was done. Like, as a kid, you don't know how to cope with this shit. And my mom, being a single mom, and she did her best. And then, of course, I have a brother, the pond digger. He's 5 years older than me. Well, he lived with my dad in Chino, so like, he wasn't able to be there on the daily either. So it was just myself and my mom trying to kind of navigate through the fucking mess, right? I can joke about this now because, look, at the end of the day, I was a 12-year-old kid. Like, what do you do? So, she did her best. She even went so far as to enroll me in this mental hospital down in Long Beach, which I don't know if it did me any good. I mean, I was there for about 6 weeks. And I was there with other troubled teens going through their own fucking problems. So, it was just one of those things as a kid that you just kind of go through. But it was a serious part of my life that caused a lot of trauma, right? As a matter of fact, in that mental institution, I learned how to do coke for the very first time. So, like I said, did that mental institution help me out that 6 weeks? I don't know. It introduced me to a bigger world, if you know what I mean. So anyways, that happened, right? So this is the first time I've ever kind of told that story in detail. Very, very few people know this about me, but I don't mind sharing it with you because I feel that it's going to kind of lead into where I'm going with tonight's topic, right? So we're going to kind of fast forward this now, right? Now, I'm 22 years old, okay? And what happened was in the past, right? So that happened, I'm 10 years past that very, traumatic experience, right? So, but I'm 22 years old. And at this point, I'm kind of a drug addict. I'm doing bad things, hanging out with the wrong crowd. I was very much a wild child. I was just doing stupid shit all the fucking time. And I think at this point, my mom was just kind of like fed up, right? And so I'm 22 years old. I'm broke. I have like jobs here and there, but nothing substantial, nothing career. It's a job that gives me a paycheck, right? So I'm broke. I'm living at home with my mom and stepdad, and I've spent years. So I got into music when I was about 15 years old, and so from the time I was 15 up to 22, like, I knew that's what I wanted to be. I wanted to be a motherfucking rock star. So I was solely focused on that. But in turn, I was living at home. I sacrificed a lot of other jobs that could have taken me in a different direction. And I pretty much spiraled into a 7-day Coke binge, right? When I finally came to, I felt like absolute death. It was a very unpleasant experience. I was physically drained. I was mentally gone. I was spiritually bankrupt. And I knew at that moment I had to do something drastic, because I was at rock bottom, right? I was there, man. Like, especially at 22 years old, I have my whole life ahead of me, and I feel like an absolute lowlife. I'm a total loser at this point. I look back on myself now and know this. I was. So what do? I get up and I walk myself into the Marine Corps recruiting office. And it wasn't out of patriotism and love of country. No, it was an escape. I was running from my problems is what I was doing. It was bad. I'm very fortunate that the Marine Corps took me. I actually had to get a drug waiver just to be able to, qualify and move forward. And I've spoke about this before. I was way out of shape, and I was just, coming out of like a withdrawal scenario. So boot camp was very tough for me. But I managed to pull through, and, I did it. But the Marine Corps didn't fix me overnight. But what it did do, it forced me to grow up and to do it fast, right? It's kind of like a fast track. So after I learned that I was going to make it through boot camp, for the first time in my life, I started taking accountability for my actions, right? That's where the comeback started me for the first time. I was right on the cusp of hitting rock bottom, and the Marine Corps changed that for me. Now, the Marine Corps was great. I got to see and do a lot of things. Traveled the world and got to do just a lot of fucking fun shit. I got out when I was 26, and I was pretty much stabilized at that point, right? Like, I kind of knew myself. I was clean. I kind of had a focus now. And that stability lasted for many years, up until my late 30s. And that's when I started falling again. I can say that I started messing with drugs again, and of course, as soon as I got out of the Marine Corps, I jumped right back into music, right? Because I wanted to chase that dream. I was 26. I still had it in me, right? But, I got sidetracked. So I started messing with drugs again. Not like before, though, right? Like, I was older now, so I was able to really kind of control what I was doing. But it wasn't enough control to prevent me from sliding into another, like, dark place in my life, right? I felt the dream of being a rock star slipping through my fingers, because now I'm in my late 30s, and I'm like, fuck, dude, like, I've been doing this shit for so fucking long, and yeah, I've had some progress, and I got to be part of some really kick-ass projects, and we accomplished some things, but never that fucking rock stardom that I was shooting for. So, like I said, I saw it slipping through my hands, and it kind of messed with my head, because up to this point, I didn't really have a lot of skills as far as like job skills. I mean, one thing I've always had the gift of gab, so I've always been good at talking to people, and I've always been good at kind of analyzing things and figuring things out on my own, but at this point I didn't have a lot of skills other than social skills. So, and I have a strong family. Like, I have a strong family. My mom, my stepdad, my brother, always good role models for me, but they were tough love type people. You know what I mean? Like, I remember vividly one time when I was a kid, my mom had said something, or I had said something to my mom. I think I like wanted a candy bar or something, and she looked stone cold right at me because we were at the store. She looked stone cold, and she's like, "No one did it for me. Why should I do it for you? I had to work for everything I have. You need to work for it too." Like, my mom was fucking hardcore like that. And when you're young, you don't realize the lesson that you're being taught right then. You're just like, holy shit, like fucking she's hardcore, right? So yeah, they've always had that tough love kind of thing when it came to me. So I didn't want to ask them for help at this time because I didn't want to lean on anybody. I didn't want to be a burden to anybody. So I kept quiet. I lost my job. I lost my apartment. Eventually, my car got repoed. I ended up homeless and carless, and within like 2 months of each other. And I had 2 chihuahuas that I absolutely loved. They were like my everything. And no one really knew how bad it got, So I had my 2 chihuahuas, and I didn't own much at that time. I had like sold everything, and I put, whatever remainings I had left in storage. And for about 7 months, I couch surfed from friend to friend with my 2 chihuahuas. It was not easy. It was humbling. It was pride swallowing, but I didn't cry out about it. I didn't complain. I didn't whine on social media about, the world being tough and how everybody's against me. No, that was never my fucking style. I can honestly say that this was the second darkest chapter in my life. And nobody knew. Nobody kind of knew how bad it really was, because I kept it all inside. Like I said, I didn't cry about it. I didn't post about it. I just took it on the chin, and I kept going, and I kept trying to figure out what I can do to fix this. Now, at this point in my life, you're kind of throwing scenarios. You're tossing them around, like, how can you make money? How can you get out of this bind? How can you fucking level up? So like I said, this went on for about 7 months. And eventually, a little bit of luck came my way. I ran into this guy who actually owned a weed dispensary. He had just opened it up in Highland, and he needed some help. And I saw a little bit of a light at the tunnel, right at the end of the tunnel. I had found out that he had this old, busted up Lincoln, and I mean, this thing was ugly as fuck. It had different tires on all fours. It was scratched. It had this really long scratch. It was probably about that wide. And it went from bumper to bumper, all on the left side. Somebody had hit the car and sideswiped it all the way down. I mean, this car was, it was fucked up. But he had this fucking Lincoln, and I made a deal with him. I like came up with this wild idea, and I didn't think he was going to go for it. I basically said that I would help him run his social sites and help market his product in exchange for the car, right? Like I was like, you don't even need to pay me. I'll come in, I'll work, and we'll count those hours as my payment to you. And he agreed. So now I like have a mission. I was focused on one fucking thing. Get that motherfucking Lincoln in your possession. That was my focus. And that's what I did. And I think it took me about 3 months to pay it off and to work it off. And I tell you what, when he handed me that pink slip, it was like I won the fucking jackpot. I won the fucking jackpot. And I tell you, the inside of the Lincoln was actually fucking nice. It was the outside. It was very ugly. But the great thing about this Lincoln was that it was fucking huge inside. And another thing that I kind of did this intentionally was when I was at the dispensary, like the window was right here next to me. And coincidentally, the Lincoln was parked right there. So like I'd come into work, I'd get in front of the computer, I'd open the fucking screen blind, and I would stare at that fucking Lincoln. I'm like, that shit's gonna be mine. That's fucking mine. So when he handed me that pink slip, I was like fucking stoked, man. I was so fucking happy. It felt like I was winning again. Like it was a small step, but now I had a little bit of independence. I was mobile again. And it was such a fucking great feeling. And I absolutely loved that Lincoln. I didn't give a fuck what it looked like. Dude, even the fucking front window didn't roll up. I like had to do it manually and like hold it up with duct tape. Like I didn't give a fuck. So I get the Lincoln, and now I don't have to couch surf anymore. So like I'm literally living in the Lincoln now, right? With my 2 Chihuahuas. And I fucking loved those little dogs because they fucking just loved me unconditionally. They didn't give a fuck how we were living, where we were at. They just wanted to be with me. So that back seat in the Lincoln, dude, I could like fully stretch out and lay down in that thing. And I slept pretty good in there. You know, at night I'd put up like little fucking blinds to like block the windows out. And that's how I lived for several months, right? So I get the Lincoln. I'm living in that thing for another 3 months or so. And a little bit more luck comes my way. I had a lady friend of mine who we were strictly friends. Nothing sexual. It was just somebody I knew. She had a 1-bedroom apartment. And she had this tiny little like dining room off to the side that was in her apartment. It was small. But she had this tiny little dining room that was empty. And at the time, I was kind of had some unemployment coming in. I had some money coming in, and at that time, I ended up getting money through the VA and stuff because I'm a veteran. So like I had some money. So I had found out that she had this little room in her apartment. Pretty much approached her, said, "Hey, you know what? I'll kick you down a little bit of money. I don't have much, but you know, if you let me stay here, I'll kind of help out where I can." And she totally was down, and she let me move in. So I ended up only being there for probably, I want to say 3 or 4 months, because what started happening was she started really like trying to lean on me and get more money. And don't get me wrong, she's a wonderful person. She watched my dogs a few times when I was out of town. But the living conditions were just not compatible. Really, it wasn't a good situation, and I was on the verge of just moving back into my car again because I was like, fuck, dude, like this is just not a good situation. But at some point now I'm thinking, you know what? Maybe I should hit up mom's. You know, I think it's time. Maybe I hit up my mom's and see if I can move back in, right? I didn't want to go there. It was really like kind of this battle of the wheels that I had inside my head, trying to figure out if like this was the right move or not. But it was either stay in that toxic living situation, which I knew I couldn't do, or move back into my car, which I would have done. But I was like, is that going to set me back? You know, I'm just now getting on my feet. Like I started working again. I had another side job. I was making a little bit more money. And I was like, fuck it, man. So I swallowed my pride and I called my parents. You know, here I am, you know, in my late 30s, asking mom and dad if I could fucking move back in. Now, my parents live in Lake Arrowhead, so they live in a nice area. And I was really nervous about making that phone call. But you know what? I made it. I told my mom everything. And you know what? She's like, move in. We'll move you into the spare bedroom. And it was such a relief. It was a fucking relief, man. Like it was like a big weight lifted off my shoulders. So they let me move in. And I was there, living there for right at the year mark. So as soon as I moved in, it's like things started falling into place. Like I got another better paying job, and then I ended up being a store manager for a pool company. We sold pools, and we also sold hot tubs and spas and stuff like that, and it was in Riverside. So I would travel from Lake Arrowhead in my freaking old beat-up Lincoln all the way to Riverside every day for a year. And right before the year came up, I was able to get a new car. And I was just like, okay, I'm getting my shit together again, right? So that whole time, those years that passed, not once did I blame somebody else for my mistakes, my poor choices. Yeah, a really bad thing happened to me when I was a kid. But was I going to let that affect my future? Fuck no. Hell no. Because that's not me. That's not the type of guy I am. I'm going to figure out what I can do to be better. And then I'm going to go do it. Yes, I had a little bit of help along the way. I had some luck come my way. You know, my parents allowing me to move back in after, as later on in life definitely helped me get back on track. So I'm not saying that it's not nice to have help, or I'm not saying to not ask for help. Sometimes you got to ask for help. Sometimes you got to do it. So, like I said, about a year, I got a brand new car. I stacked up some cash. I got on my feet again, and I moved the fuck out of my parents' house. Now, let me be clear, okay? And I think you guys know this about me already. I absolutely cannot stand people who play victim, okay? After all the shit I've been through in my life, I've never played victim, ever. Because it's not in me to do it. I think that's a learned behavior. You learn victim mentality from people. And unfortunately, I never learned that. I'm the type of guy that just buckles down and fucking suffers in silence until I figure something out. So I've got zero sympathy for people who screw up their own lives and then blame it on fucking everybody else. Okay? their exes, their boss was an asshole, their parents, the government, society. Shut the fuck up. No, it's none of that. Fact is, I've been in the gutter twice in my fucking lifetime. And I'm never going back. I'm never doing that shit again, right? Both times, I can recall vividly how it made me feel. And I never want to feel like that again. Ever. And you're certainly not going to fix yourself if you're blaming other people for your fucking mistakes. Like I said, I've been there twice. I was homeless. I was addicted. I was flat broke, living in a motherfucking car with 2 chihuahuas. Not once did I point the finger at somebody else. I pointed the blame at me every fucking time. So forgive me if I don't have empathy for those who want to, be little bitches. I turned my life around. I've done it twice. Hopefully I don't have to do it again. But if I do, I fucking will. But I like to think, though, I'm at a better place in life, because I didn't make excuses. I took responsibility. I took accountability for my own actions. And when you take accountability for your own fuck-ups, that's where the real strength lies. You can't change a damn thing in your life if you're too scared to admit you're the one who fucked it up. These victim players want sympathy, but not solutions. I think they're addicted to attention. They like people to go, oh, well, what's wrong? Oh, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. No. But when it comes to actually trying to fix their lives, it's absolute fucking crickets. Total fucking silence. You want to change? Get fucking honest with yourself. Get gritty. Get to fucking work. You're either going to own your story or you're letting it own you. And as far as I'm concerned, if you're still breathing, you've still got time to turn it around. It's funny, I've had this drink here the whole time. I'm a little parched, but I forgot it was there, so... So I'm grabbing that drink. Take a breath. Let this all sink in, okay? I've lived a wild life. I truly have. I can honestly say that. I've been broke, addicted, homeless, humiliated, but I climbed out. I climbed out of the fucking darkness that I created on my own accord. The thing is, I'm not saying I'm special, right? It's like, everybody goes through their own trials and tribulations. Everybody's got their own bullshit that they deal with on the daily. I'm just purely speaking from experience, okay? So I don't think I'm special. I just learned to find it inside me to just fix it on my own. Not because I had a trust fund or some kind of magical support team, although, like I said, I've always had a very strong family. But they were all about tough love, and I think that helped with creating my strength, really. I climbed out because I was too damn stubborn to quit and to throw in the towel. It's not in me to do that. I'm a very competitive person on all things, and I just don't know how to stay down. I took the hits, faced the truth, and I changed. I found out what I needed to do, and I changed. These days now, I'm in my early 50s. I've got more than I ever thought I would ever have at this point in life. I own a home. I got people in my life who love me. I'm surrounded by loyal animals who give me peace. I make more money than I've ever made in my life. And you know what? I earned every fucking inch of that. I earned it through blood, sweat, and tears. And resilience. I didn't fucking give up. I didn't blame my life on other people. This life I've built, I built it with a little bit of luck, but it came from an internal fire inside me that just did not want to give the fuck up. I refused to quit. I didn't cry. I didn't beg. I worked. I worked hard. And I owned my shit. And I rebuilt myself twice from the fucking ashes. So if you're out there feeling lost and ashamed and you feel like you're pathetic, if I can climb out of the black hole of despair, you certainly can. This is your shot to do it. No more excuses. Find the strength inside to fucking fix yourself, man. It's what you gotta do. It's times of hardships that truly build character. It's these times that you learn about yourself. I'm a firm believer in that. You either take charge of your life or continue to be a victim. I chose to not be a victim. Which one would you rather be? And that's all I got to say about that. If you like my content and you want to keep supporting the cause, I would absolutely love it if you shared my social medias, my YouTube. Smash that like button, share it with your friends. And, it helps me out. It helps me out a lot. And for those of you who've been following me from the very beginning, I really appreciate it. It means a lot to me. At the end of the day, I'm just a dude who has a lot to say. Some people are going to agree with me. Some may not. And that's fine. But at the end of the day, I will always be me. And you could fucking count on that. And that's all I got to say about that. This is Reelz signing off. Ride safe, live free, and don't take shit from anybody. Peace.